Hello, 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 and welcome to Financial Confidence here on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters. I'm your host, Lynn Demmons, and today we have an exciting episode for you, so tune in. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a very special guest in our podcasting studio with us today, Mr. Gregory Bethea of Victory College Funding Solutions. But before I introduce him to the group, guys, let's remember our guiding principle for this show. That is Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. We also implore that you pray over your finances so that as you develop these skills around financial literacy, that you'll do the things that you're called to do as you level up in your finances. So if you'll commit this simple prayer to memory, let us bow. Lord, help me to value the things in this world that are really valuable. That's my relationship with you, my life, and my family. Help make me a responsible steward of your financial resources, and let us trust your holy word for the eternal glory of your son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Yes, and yes. Welcome to this wonderful episode. I have in the podcasting studio, Mr. Gregory Bethea of Victory College Funding Solution. Gregory, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. Well, we thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today, because this is an area that is of utmost importance for many of us. And many of the parents who will be tuning in, who will be listening to this podcast, are more than likely from the generation that I was. We went to school, we had the student loans, we graduated with all the student loan debts, and we're working through trying to get out, pull ourselves up right by our bootstraps, and get out of all of this student loan debt. So we're excited to have you here in the studio today to talk about the different options that we may have in regards to funding college for our students, and maybe even for ourselves if we decide to go back. But before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started with Victory College Funding Solutions? What's your story?
Well, that's a great question. I pretty much fell into the space somewhat on mistake. I didn't really know it was available. And I have an extensive background in the education system. I was a teacher at the elementary level, middle, and the high school level. I even had the opportunity to work as a college recruiter. So across the board, I've had the opportunity to see different aspects of education. And at the time, in 2012, when I began my actual company, Victory College Funding Solutions, I learned about college funding through an actual invitation in the mailbox. And I was like, how did I get this information? And little did I know at that point it would change my life forever, far as, you know, my vision on what I thought I would be doing. At the time, like I said, I was in the education system, and I also had a pretty good background in the financial services, and I had the opportunity to marry them together. And from that point forward, I began to learn different components, and I've had the opportunity to work with different organizations with different visions on how college funding should look. And I'm now to the point now where I'm really doing what I really wanted to do from the beginning. I had the opportunity to work up under different organizations and look at their methods and their vision. And now I'm working from a perspective of my vision. And that's where I am now. Here speaking with you today to talk about, I guess.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Love that. And I can relate to that as well. Coming from the education sector as well, I can truly appreciate that process that you've gone through and how you've married the two to be able to do what you do. So with that said, there's so many myths out there in regards to college funding and what people should be doing and what should they be looking at. What are some of those myths, and can you help us to dispel some of the myths around college funding that currently exist?
I mean, such a broad subject. So many myths, and it's for a lot of different reasons. I mean, really, what do you learn to pay for college? No one really ever teaches you to pay for college. The only thing you may get is a little counseling going forward when you actually apply for your loan and you go through your entry and your exit counseling. But you really don't really get the education on your options and the long-term effects of paying for college. And even then, you're talking about planning for college, which should happen years before that. So I would say if I can narrow it down to maybe 3 myths, which there are more because of lack of education, I would look at the concept of scholarships. Scholarships are not really what they seem to be. A lot of people look at, I'm just going to pay for college with scholarships. And, some scholarships you really are pretty cut and dry, like athletic scholarships, sometimes academic scholarships, because they typically cover your full, or if it's a partial, they let you know how much. But when you're looking for scholarships yourself, you will run into, where and how much do you spend your time? And sometimes people go into things like the fast webs or different online sites. Sometimes people end up paying for scholarship, scholarship, I guess, consultation. And people say you should never do that. But the whole thing is people are hungry for scholarships. But the main thing that people should know is that your best scholarship is in the school that you actually select. That's where most of the money is. Any other scholarships that you're getting online will be pretty small. It probably wouldn't be worth your time if you're getting any at all. $250, $500 scholarships. When you look at the big picture, that's not going to put a dent in your tuition. So, you can spend hours writing essays, and it's not to say not to do it, but, what do you put most of your time?
Right.
And then I guess the second thing, if I were to choose, it would be some people feel that, you really don't get into college planning until your senior year. And definitely over the past year, 1 to 2 years, that's definitely not the case, being that a lot of things have changed. So really, you should be planning college many years before your senior year, but definitely no later than your 10th grade year. Preferably you start in your 9th and 8th grade year, because of just the different stages you can deal with. So that would be another myth. Like, you can get it done, the first month in August at financial aid night or senior night, and it's a lot of things that you can miss possibly if you wait that late. And I guess the third thing would be, it's better to go cheaper. A lot of people say, hey, I'll go to a state school. It's cheaper to go to a state school or community college. And it's really not that many community colleges like it used to be. A lot have merged and a lot have closed. But the whole idea of going cheaper, that's another myth, because sometimes, depending on your need and get into terms like EFC, that it could be actually cheaper for you out of pocket, or just period, to go to a more expensive school. Sometimes a private school can be cheaper than a state school, and that all of that depends on the personal situation. So
Of course.
those are 3 big myths. There's many more.
So I want to take some time to go back to one of those myths that you shared, and it's around students starting earlier. And you hit on something that a lot of people may be challenged in the idea. I know one of the things that we push is, starting as early as maybe 5th and 6th grade in middle school to start looking at things and preparing. So why do you recommend that parents and students start this process before they enter high school, or 8th grade, 9th grade? Do you have a story you can share about a specific family and what was the outcome?
Well, it's so many students that we work with within our network, and really just the specifics will really be in the detail. And the detail is the fact that, within the last year or two, coming up on 2 years, we have a term called base income year and prior year. Prior meaning prior to the year you graduate, prior to your senior year. So realistically, if you're looking at the prior year, you're talking about January 1st of a person's sophomore year that the school begins to evaluate your ability to pay for college. And that pretty much extends from there to the 31st of your junior year in college, junior year in high school. So the sophomore year in high school to the junior year, half of the junior year in high school, you're looking at pretty much the basis of how they're going to treat you going forward, unless you have some drastic changes. So if a person is waiting into late junior year or into the senior year, if they have an income, a pretty decent income, many of the adjustments that they can make, they won't be able to make. And then, of course, when you get into the FAFSA season, they start looking at your assets. And if you haven't had a chance to really assess how you're presenting yourself to the school,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to be in a situation where you won't be able to put your best foot forward. So that's why the longer you plan and the more you know in advance, the better you can position yourself, just like you will want to with your taxes, which taxes are very much a part of the situation, being the FAFSA looks at your tax returns. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a year in advance as well. So you definitely want to be able to plan and prepare years in advance, and that's only looking at how you're paying for college. When it comes to the earlier years, the planning component is, how do you pick the right school? How do you know what's the best school for you? How do you know that the school is going to treat you in a manner that you want to be treated financially? You don't want to waste time looking at a school that traditionally is just going to give you a lot of loans, or mm-hmm. they don't have a lot of the scholarships or the merit aid or the grants that you are seeking. You have time to look at that in advance if you're planning as early as possible, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, probably at the latest, because that's going to determine what type of strategies. Some schools, private schools actually look at a little more detailed analysis. They may have their own forms. They mm-hmm. may look at some things that the FAFSA don't look at. So if you're looking at a private school, or you want to go towards that route, you have to be even more strategic and aware of what you're doing. So that's why planning is very critical, because you just don't know some of the things that you need to deal with, and you don't want to wait to the last minute to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you brought up two things that I wanted to go back and visit. Of course, prior year, that was a big to-do a couple of years when that happened with the FAFSA, and it caught some people off guard. What are some things that families can do to prepare to be ready for that, as they're getting ready for that situation? Because oftentimes the families that we deal with and work with, they don't have a clue as to where to get started. And one piece of that you did mention were the taxes. So what would be, the top 3 things that you would recommend for families as they're preparing for that process?
The discovery phase is very important. I consider the discovery phase to be, the later half of the middle school and going into the high school, is to really assess your interests and mm-hmm. your gift set, really assess your plans and the career possibilities before you even start to choose a school, because that could very well determine which programs are better for you. And that definitely falls in the planning area. Also, if you can get those things pretty settled, you can really focus on the grades and the test scores and narrowing down your choices at that point. But you don't want to put the cart before the horse. If you really plan, you can kind of chip away at the things you need to focus on and not have to do all of it in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So that short period of time, the senior year goes really fast, and you have so many other things that you're dealing with, yearbook and pictures and prom. It's really, you don't want to enjoy your year. You don't want to be still trying to figure out test scores and things if you don't have to. And you want to have a better idea of where you're trying to go. And it's hard to know where you're trying to go when you haven't taken care of the prior things that are necessary to help you choose the right school, to know which school you not only going to get accepted into, but how you're going to pay for it.
Okay, so you also mentioned something there too, and choosing the right school. I know I graduated from USC, and now we live in Georgia, so I'm pushing UGA for my baby. He loves the Bulldogs, and we have these conversations about different universities. And my my cousin, my brother-in-law, he's trying to get him to go to Clemson, and somebody else is pulling him towards, Chapel Hill. But how does a child choose? How does a parent and a child really have that conversation, not just going to a school because mommy and daddy, right, attended those institutions, or they want you to go to those institutions? What are some of those things what are those look-fors? What are the questions they should be asking? Because you said it needs to be the best fit for the child, not only from, how they treat you, but also from the financial perspective. So what are some of those things that parents and students should keep at the forefront as they're deciding on what school is right for me?
I mean, that's probably the most important area you should focus on, because it touches on so many areas. It can touch on how you pay for college. It can touch on, how successful your student is during college. It can even touch an effect on how successful they are after college. And you don't really want to waste time and money in the area that you're not really going to be able to produce anything from. That's actually an area that I actually cover. I have a book out here, and one of the things that really that I really focus on is the fact that I try to be as I guess approach it in a very sensitive way, because I don't really want to. I know a lot of people have family traditions where they want to go to certain schools, or they love the favorite football team. But ultimately, when it comes to what's best for you, you definitely don't want to get caught up in the hype of, everybody's going there from your high school, or it has a great football team, or your family went there. But you want to really look at it as a whole. How's it going to impact your particular life, your goals, and just really understanding that fit may not be for you, and have to come to that reality. And that's why having time to really digest that is important. You don't want to do that a few months before time to go to school, have to go through that emotional adjustment, but really start looking at it realistically early, so you can say, is this really going to benefit me long term, or is it going to be something that's just good for, social or, networking purposes, which is great. I mean, that's part of college, the networking ability, the name on the resume, things of that nature. But ultimately, how's it going to contribute to you with your plans that you have established? You should have established those plans on what are you going to do with that degree. And I think a lot of times people don't really look at that until later. And sometimes they look at it halfway through college and they want to change their major. Sometimes they'll look at it after they get the degree and say, I wasted my time. Well, you have 4 or 5 years to plan before to really, and that's where that discovery and that self-assessment is important, because it can save you a lot of time and money well before you get into the college season of your life.
So you mentioned that you have a book. What's the name of your book, and where can folks get it? Because I know that this is a topic that a lot of people will definitely be interested in.
Well, I wrote a book, and I wrote a book more so from the perspective of realizing that most people don't have a foundation of approaching. It's a lot of books, how-to books. They're very highly terminology, difficult to understand, and I understand that's a different level of understanding. But I wanted to speak in layman's terms, and my book is called Plan the College Game, everything what every parent should know before completing the FAFSA. And it puts the mindset where, how do you approach the whole process? Because the game really starts before you complete the FAFSA. It doesn't start after you complete the FAFSA. It doesn't start once you enroll. The game starts well before you realize it. So I wanted to give people key nuggets, parents key nuggets on what to do, what to look for, what not to do. And it's not really a lot of specifics on particular things a person would need, because that's on the individual level, but just the general principles of what do you need to know before you make any decisions, before you even approach the FAFSA, before you even approach a school. How do you want to approach it? And I have a lot of questions to ask yourself, in each chapter, and also give information on how to approach it, because that's the most important thing. I think from there, you will be able to decide what's the appropriate next steps. And I'm a person who believes that it's a very much uneducated area, paying for college, but also just knowing your resources. Sometimes you can get a book, and the book is just very bland, very general, and you don't know how to digest, you don't know how to apply. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really do much for you to be able to make certain decisions. So I wanted to give the questions and things that you could use to help guide you along the path And then when it gets more into specifics, then you can get professional help. But you need to know where you are before you even approach professional help, if you do need professional help.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I love that, playing the college game. So it sounds like to me it's a play-by-play book, as if I'm on the football field, I need my guide, right? That's what it
Right.
sounds like to me. So I want to switch gears a little bit to go back to our preliminary conversation that we had. And I mentioned that I had a 529 plan. And you said, well, there could be some problems with a 529 plan. So I wanted us to revisit that conversation, because I think that'll be an interesting idea, because in my circle of friends, if you will, that's the to-do. That's what we're all doing now, is putting the money aside for the in 529 plan, so our child doesn't have to have these student loans that we've had to work through and pay off and things of that nature. So what's your take on the 529 plan, and why did you say that it could be, there are some positives, there are some negatives? So just have that conversation with us.
Well, it's definitely a hot topic. I can't say that every day I don't get multiple alerts and articles about this topic. It seems like I get that more than anything. I try to keep up with the trends, and I get alerts on certain, conversations. And even when it's talking about college planning, it's talking about 529s. And I guess it's because people are more diligent. I mean, when you really think about it, 10, 15, 20 years ago, people just assume I can pay for college with a loan. And a lot of people now seeing the effects of the loans and with the interest and the things of that nature. So what I would say is, my approach is always to ask questions and also have a person to think through the process, the pros and the cons. Everything has pros and cons, and it would be up to you to decide what's best for you. There are pros and there are cons. The pros are obvious and they're promoted. The pros are you can put money aside with certain tax benefits. And, it's even different, two types of 529s that you do have. You have the prepaid, you have the savings. And the prepaid accounts are really phasing out. They're not as available. Some states don't even offer them because the prices jump so drastically by the time you have that, prepaid account. Right. It's different. So they're really doing away with that. The savings accounts are, I guess, what most people are looking into getting and saving in. The pros, of course, again, is the tax benefits, and that is allocated for college. What a person really has to look at on the con side is a few things. One, with the 529, it's great for accumulation, but when it comes to distribution, that's when the issue comes, and that's the big thing, the distribution component. When you're approaching a college, if you look at them, or you look at it from their perspective, a college is looking at it as if you are in need of aid, if you don't have a significant amount, and you're just looking to cover some of college to, alleviate some of the debt. But when you really look at it, a college is going to see that as really, do you really need more aid, or are you capable? So what are you presenting to them? When they're able to see it, it's not hidden. It's shown that it's for college. So what are you communicating? That would be the question. What are you communicating to the college if you're looking for more aid? Now, if you're paying everything out of your pocket, that's a different conversation. So you have to look at your situation. Another thing you have to look at is the fact that when you distribute that aid, that 529, in those years, it looks as if you have more money. That during those years, especially on your return, or you're looking at how it's showing that you have a lump sum of money. Again, what is that communicating? So it's not necessarily there's no way around that. You just have to be very strategic on when you distribute the money. And that may require some strategy and some support. And then one of the final things I would say, and probably one of the bigger things, is what happens if something happens with that student? What if they change their mind? What if they, drop out, or different things before you actually have a chance to fully distribute? Because you're probably not going to want to distribute it all at once anyway. But also, if that student changes their mind, do you have another student to transfer it to? Or what if it's the last child? You have nobody else, or what if it's the only child? Then you have the tax benefits that you thought you had, they're no longer available because it's for college. You can't go and pay your mortgage off with it. So if it's pigeonholed money, it is an option. It is a tool, and You just really have to assess within your planning how you want to use it. Is it the best route to go? And how you're going to distribute it when it's time to be distributed. It's just not like, okay, I have this money. Well, here you go, college, you know.
Right.
So you really have to, and then there's other options. There really are other options, and it all goes back to planning. So it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, and for most people, it probably could be a bad thing if they're not really understanding of how it works.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's very good points that you've shared. So guys, you've heard the pros and cons of those 529 plans. Make sure that you make those decisions wisely. Begin with the end in mind is what I heard. So you know exactly what the end result is of what you need. And then I heard have a plan B, right? Doesn't hurt to have a plan B. So the last thing that I want to ask you before we close out, and the last question that we have here is, what are some things a person should do finance-wise to begin the journey of funding college? Because you talked about there being other options. I know we talked about scholarships. We mentioned the FAFSA. We mentioned 529 plans. So what are some of those things that a person should do as they prepare to fund college, and then other potential options out there that people may not be aware of?
I mean, one of the first things you should realize is just know your deadlines and know your timeline. Know your timeline. I think that will help you from not getting in a crunch and kind of stay on track of where you need to be in the process, and you won't end up in a last minute situation. Realize that base income year does start January 1st, and that's the sophomore year through the beginning of that junior year, which is December 31st, around that time. And know that is the basic, that's the base as far as your income is concerned. Know that, you know, the FAFSA, when you complete it, that's when everything is off and going. It's out there then. I mean, once you complete that FAFSA, your assets and everything, and a lot of people say, I'll just fill it out and then I will make adjustments, you know, revisions. And realistically, again, look at it from the college perspective. You know, that's like a red flag possibly. So, you know, the more you can do in advance, the better. Don't assume that you can revisit it unless you really have some solid documentation, because that's really the only thing that's going to change anything. And also begin early. I would definitely say start by 9th grade. 8th grade is good as well. And you really should be rolling by 10th grade. That's your best bet, especially if you have income, especially if you have assets, if you inherit money, if you make a major sale, real estate. I don't know. It could be, you know, it's a lot of things that can happen in day and time that, you know, they're going to see it. It's going to be on your tax return. And, you know, that goes into a whole nother conversation, which involves professionals. You definitely want to have professionals involved who know what they are doing. Don't assume because they're a professional that they understand this area. So you definitely have some questions to ask them, at least during those college planning years, so they won't trigger anything. Because some tax strategies are great tax strategies, but they are horrible financial aid strategies. So you really want to be in tune with your tax advisor during those years on, okay, this is what we need to do, this is what we don't need to do. And you have to be educated, especially if they are not. So I definitely believe in, being that I'm the type of person, I'm a college funding advisor, it's very few people who provide the service throughout the country. I mean, it's very rare, especially in your local city. Sometimes you can research them. And then you get into the factors of how much does it cost, because it can be very expensive for most traditional advisors. It can be thousands of dollars, and I can't say that it wouldn't be worth it. I really can't. But a lot of people may not be able to afford it, even though it may save you thousands of dollars. It can make it save you your livelihood. You know, some of the advice that they can give you. So I won't say it's a negative thing, but it can be very costly. So. But I definitely would advise, you know, that I recommend a person would speak to a professional, just like you would with your taxes. You just don't go do your own taxes and say, here you go, because you realize the consequences of it. So the mindset you definitely want to have is getting more knowledgeable, getting some support. It would definitely be worth it in the long run. And hopefully you get the right professional. You will have someone that can show you your options, because there are several options to pay for college. It's more than loans. It's more than one type of loan. It's more than how much money I put in my account, which you definitely don't want to do. That's definitely a no-no, having your money in bank accounts and So,
Right.
that's part of the planning. But there's some very creative strategies out there that's right up on the people's noses. And honestly, you probably won't be able to get into that just in a book or online article or even a professional who's not aware. So you have to be very strategic during this season. And that's some of the things that I would recommend.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Gregory, this has been an enlightening conversation today. Before we close, will you tell us how we can get in contact with you, how they can connect with you via social media, and any other avenues that you would like to share today?
Definitely, I'm very busy here with the Facebook area. I primarily deal with Facebook, and you can find me at Victory College Fund Solutions. I have a page there. I also have a group for families and parents, which is up on the Defeat College Debt, hashtag Defeat College Debt. And that's just an area where I'm creating a forum for parents to be able to communicate questions, help each other out, in a way that's very much needed. Sometimes people are isolated and on an island, and they have a lot of questions, and they may not have a professional that they can speak to. One of the biggest things that I've decided to do to go from a traditional route to taking training online. So through my group and through things that I'm doing on Facebook, I'm offering different training classes and different webinars dealing with parents planning for college, different stages. So a lot of that information you definitely will find on Victory College Funding Solutions and Facebook, and also Defeat College Debt, which is a group. It's only probably one other group. I definitely want to encourage you to get involved in forums with parents. You can learn a lot. And I also have a Twitter handle with Tuition Buster and Instagram Tuition Buster. And again, you will find Victory College Funding Solutions on YouTube and on LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome.
I'm also on LinkedIn as well for the professionals.
Okay, awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. You heard it here. That's Gregory Bethea with Victory College Funding Solutions. Go find him. He's all over the place, y'all. You can't miss him. Join up, parents, if you have those questions about getting those colleges funded. I know it's an area that we are need more information, just to be real, right? We need more information in this area. So seek him out. Find him, connect with him in any of those platforms that he shared. He's all over the place. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here at WYTV7. Yes.
And don't forget the book. The book is out here, is Playing the College Game, what every parent should know before leaving the FAFSA. So definitely that's a great resource as well. And you will find it on social media platforms.
Absolutely. Playing the college game. That's right, guys. Go and search him out. So, guys, we thank you so much for joining us here at WYTV7. This is Financial Confidence, where we're helping you get the financial literacy you need to make your money, keep your money, and grow your money. We'll see you on the next episode of Financial Confidence.